Welcome back to the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. Today we have Shannon Mattern on our show, and I'm so glad that she's here. I did want to remind everyone, you can find me at Virtually Curie on Instagram and leave your questions and comments for Shannon. I'll be sure to share them with her. We're also brought to you by our email community, Tipping Point Jar of Wisdom. We have exclusive content for you if you sign up for our email community, and you'll get those every Thursday after the interview. And they're great rapid fire questions to learn how you can grow your business immediately. So again, we've got Shannon on today. Shannon Mattern is the founder of the Web Designer Academy, where she's helped hundreds of web designers create profitable, sustainable web design businesses using her proven frameworks, systems, and strategies. She's also the host of the Profitable Web Designer podcast, your go-to resource for no fluff, all heart marketing, mindset, money management, and mentorship, so you can create freedom, flexibility, and financial independence as a web designer. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. So I was looking through all your stuff, and you have a lot out there, and it seems like you've also evolved quite a bit from where you started, which is really interesting, especially for our audience. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started? You were working a corporate job and you decided, you know what, hey, I'm going to take this to entrepreneurship, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I think this was back in 2014. At this time, I was working at my day job, and I had I remember sitting in my office, and I had this moment where I was like, this cannot be all there is. Like, I did not go to college and get good grades and get this job and follow the, traditional path of what you're supposed to do, to be sitting in this beige windowless office doing this like report that nobody's going to look at. And it just felt like so unfulfilling and so Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And I remember like having this like mini panic attack, but also feeling like very guilty, because I'm like, I have a good paycheck, good benefits, a good job. I shouldn't want more. I should be happy. And so that was kind of this moment where I'm like, there's gotta be more than this. And how do I do it in a way that like doesn't make me feel guilty, which I'm sure we can dissect a little bit more. But I remember starting to kind of think of like, I want to be my own boss. What could I do? And at my day job, I was in charge of everything, all of their websites, all of their e-commerce, all of that stuff. And I had used my skills to build like business solutions for our company that made our company tons of money, but I didn't quite make the connection that like I could do that for myself. I could take those skills and, go freelance for other companies. And I had one of our vendors call one day and say, hey, who built this website for this thing? And I was like, oh, I did. He was like, oh, you did? Do you do work on the side? And I was like, sure. And so at that time he's like, well, how much do you charge? And I was like, well, here's how much I make an hour at my day job. So that's how much I charge. And he must've been like, I'm getting this for a steal, because I was massively undercharging. So that kind of like springboarded me into freelancing, and it was a hot mess. I acted like an employee. I didn't charge nearly enough. I said yes to everything. And I had a whole lot of imposter syndrome mindset stuff around like, oh, well, that didn't work out the way I thought it was. I can't charge more for that. Like all of this stuff. And so I had kept taking on more clients as I was sharing with other people, like, oh, I'm doing this freelance web design stuff on the side. And they're like, oh, I need a website. My company needs a website. So I kept saying yes to all of these projects. And it became very clear to me that it was unsustainable. And I thought that it just wasn't going to be possible. I'm like, oh, I can't charge enough. There's not enough hours in the day. Still have this full-time job. So I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to wrap up these projects. I'm going to go just back to my day job and just like learn to be happy doing this report or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And then I heard a podcast interview with Flynn of Smart Passive Income, where he talked about how he taught people how to set up their website, and he made affiliate commissions off the back end of that, from the companies and products and programs that he recommended. And I was like, wait a minute, you mean every single like tutorial I found online to teach me how to do the things I know how to do wasn't just someone like putting that out on the internet for like the goodness of their heart. They're like making money off the back end of this. And I had like one of those like record scratch moments where I was like, I could do that too, because nobody else out there is like doing this for women in the web design space. All of the tutorials are by men. I had experiences in forums that were not so great, trying to figure out certain technical things. And so I decided to I was going to put together a free training for women who wanted to learn how to build their own website. Cause I was like, it's just way too hard to build it for them. I'm going to teach people how to do it themselves. And I'm going to just grow this thing at scale and become the next, at that time, Chalene Johnson or Amy Porterfield and just grow this huge business. And so I kind of set off to do that. And I wrapped up all of those one-on-one clients and got to work on figuring out how to promote this free training and build an email list and market this thing. And then what ended up happening was people are like, Shannon, that's great. I love that you're showing me how to build this entire website for free, but I don't want to do it. Can I pay you to do it for me? And I'm like, no, that was horrible. I don't have the emotional and physical and mental capacity to take on clients. And one of those people that asked me happened to be a business coach. And she's like, can you please let me help you? Because if you get some boundaries and some systems and some processes in place, you really could, do really well with this. And so I said yes. And she helped me kind of realize oh, I don't have to operate as an employee with my clients. Right. I get to be the one running the show. This is amazing. I'm massively undercharging because I didn't value my skills. And so after some time of working with her, other web designers started to come to me and say, hey, how are you getting clients? How are you making this work? And I had opportunities to speak at conferences. And then I started teaching other web designers hey, here's how I'm marketing myself. And here's how I'm getting clients. And here's how I'm getting them to cooperate with me. And here's how much I'm charging. And all of that kind of happened between 2014 and 2017. And by that point, my business was making enough money between affiliate commissions and one-on-one client work and this web designer academy that I had started that I replaced my six-figure day job income. And I quit my day job on January 2nd of 2018 to take my business full-time and have not looked back since.
Were you nervous to quit? Did you have a little bit of oh my gosh, this could all disappear though, right?
I was very nervous. I was very nervous to quit, but I also had set a goal for myself that, so when I started my business, I was not making six figures, but I kept getting raises at my day job. And so I kept staying and staying. I kept moving the goalposts farther and farther out. So my goal was if I hit twice my monthly salary, so I was making $5,000 a month, let's say around that time. If I hit $10,000 a month twice, then I'll know it's possible and I can do it again. And when I have my time back, and I am, on my own, I know that I can do it. But yes, I was very nervous because I'm I've done it before, I can do it again. But when I quit, I kind of panicked and, you buy every course and training under the sun to help you launch the newest thing and, all of that. And so I kind of went through that period of freak out. But it worked. It all worked out, even though I was kind of a hot mess in those first 6 months, but it worked out.
It's nerve-wracking. I mean, I quit my full-time job too. And unlike you, I was making less. But I had signed on a client who would bring me over. And funnily enough, their company was they needed me to have a company laptop. They wouldn't let me use my own laptop. And I was like, oh, I have to make a decision. I have to either quit because I can't bring this laptop to the office, right? Or I tell them, I decline them and I could keep going at a snail's pace. But I still remember going into the office and saying that I was leaving, and they countered and they came back and they offered me 20,000 more at my company that I was working at. And my husband was like, do you think maybe you should take that? Because I mean, you're making like 20,000 less. And I was just like, I know, I just feel strongly about this. I feel strongly about this business that I'm building. And I feel like I can get even better and even higher amounts if I just keep working at it. And that became the case. But I know what you mean. It's so nerve-wracking. You just sit there kind of like, is this the right decision? Am I going to be able to replicate this? And as you know, things go up and down as a business owner.
Yeah.
So have you ever doubted yourself since then? Have you ever been like, maybe I can, go back full time?
Here's the interesting thing is like when I decided I was going to start this business, like I had an unwavering like mindset of like, this is going to work. Did I have doubts? Like, did I have fears about money? Absolutely. But like, I had never been more sure that I was going to like be able to quit my day job and continue to pay myself the same paycheck I was making at my day job. And that was the commitment that I made to my husband, because like I put a 7-month notice in at my job, because by that point I was like on the executive team the year that I quit, and we were planning the next year's budget. We were planning initiatives that would require me to like be there to run them. And I said, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'm leaving at the end of the year. And so I gave a 7-month notice, and I went home and told my husband, and he's like, well, you have time to take that back, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. But in my mind, I was like, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And then like when the time came, the deal that I made with him was like, hey, if I'm not consistently putting into our personal bank account a paycheck that matches what I was making at my day job, I will look for a job. Like I'll go back, no harm, no foul. But also in my mind, I'm like, but I'm not going to, like, because I'm going to do what it takes to make this happen. I had my fair share of like fear and worry, but I never doubted my ability to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like your business really evolved, like, and you kind of, to lack of a better term, but you kind of like flip-flopped between what you were doing. You know what I mean? It was like one-on-one clients. Oh, never mind. I'm not making enough. So I'm going to make this academy. And then the coach was like, no, you really can make. Where did you settle? Where are you now at the end of 2022 with your business?
Yeah. So at the end of 2022, I still have my free DIY web design training, and it's like still out there, but it's not something that like I focus on marketing or promoting or anything like that. Our web designer academy, where we coach web designers to like run projects, package, price, position, and sell their services. That is really where like my focus of time, marketing, like our team, we're all focused on that. And it was interesting. It was one of those things where it was like the thing that was working in my business all along, but it was like too easy, that I didn't like go all in on it. I was like, I wanted to make like the DIY web design training, make the millions, or I wanted to, I had like a marketing tech training, like strategy program that I was trying to sell. I was trying to do all of these other things, but the web designer academy, every time I like opened it up for enrollment, it sold out immediately. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like that's fun.
Huh.
But I didn't pay attention to the fact that like, that is what was just so easy for me to sell. And it was such a joy to service the program. Because I was like trying to do all of these I was like trying to climb these other mountains, but this was one that I didn't need to climb, which was fascinating. Like that I had to make it like way harder for myself than I needed to. I learned a lot on all of those offshoots that I'm applying to this business, but yeah, I had lots of different streams of revenue.
How did you get to that point where you're able to focus and say, wait a minute, this easy thing, this academy that's selling out, this is the way this is where I should be putting my focus?
Yeah. It became really clear like in 2019 for me, because I was like, okay, I don't want to do one-on-one client projects anymore. I had gotten to the point where I was booking like 5-figure web design projects, and I had put this proposal out for, I think it was like, as I was like doing the work, this proposal was going to be like a $35,000 project, but it was going to take up the next 3 to 6 months of my business. And to really like do it right, I was going to need to like fully focus on that and bring on team and bring on some support and everything. And I was sitting there and I was at this crossroads of like, the impact I want to have is not in making $35,000 helping one person with this business problem. I really want to, like, it didn't feel fulfilling again. Like, it kind of felt like, yes, it's great to like do web design for clients, but what I really want to do is help impact women and help them, grow their businesses and create that freedom, flexibility, and financial independence that at that point I had created for myself through doing all of these different things. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, in order to make this work, it's going to be the Web Designer Academy. But in order to make that work, I have to increase the price to reflect like the level of support that we're already providing. I already knew I was undercharging and over delivering with that program. But I was like looking at like our ecosystem of what we had going on. And I was like, I know I can, raise the price on this significantly, get the right people in, have a really big impact, and have that be like what generates the most revenue for us. And so I made that decision at the end of 2019 to stop client work, to stop trying to sell these other marketing courses. I was going to close down the free web design training, but I thought, like that's like a really great resource for people who are just getting started. And then I raised the price of my Web Designer Academy from $2,000 to $5,000 and launched it. And it was it was just like blew my mind how much we made, even when I increased the price significantly. It was
like $3,000. That's quite a
shock. Yeah, it was a self-study online. It was like a self-paced online course with coaching, but then we turned it into like a higher ticket group coaching program. So, and that's when I was like, it just felt so good. It felt right. Like I didn't have this whole, I didn't have like all the worry of like, what if people don't get results? Like all of that stuff. It just felt so aligned. It took me a while to get there. But once I did, like we kind of just let some other things fall by the wayside and focused exclusively on that program. And I've hired team to support that program. I have another coach with me now, and we've just been growing. So it's been fantastic.
So obviously talking about this like academy that you've been selling and all of this, you need people to buy this. How did you build your audience?
So I have done the same things I have done since 2014, which is through building relationships. So one of the things that I did in the very early days that I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, I bet if I talk to other to like women business coaches who are teaching women how to like set up an online business, I bet they need to know how to build a website. So I would reach out to them and say, hey, I started this blog series called the Women to Watch series. And I interviewed them on my blog, and I like asked them questions, and I wrote up this blog post, and then I made all the graphics, and I published it on my website, and I sent it to them, and I shared it on social media. And I was like, oh, hey, here's a link if you want to share this out with your, with like on your blog or to your email list. And that felt like I was just grasping at straws back then, because everybody's talking about like Facebook ads and Facebook groups. And here's all these very sophisticated, techie ways of, exploding your audience and all of that. And so I was doing all of that, but then I kind of got sidetracked by all of the shiny marketing objects out there, like whatever was popular at the time, Facebook ad funnel challenges and like webinars and all of these things. Right. And I put so much time, again, a thread of the story. I put so much time and energy into all of these other things. But what was working for me behind the scenes was like the relationships that I had built and the trust that I had built. And, really like giving away very valuable information for free, in terms of like, the information that I was sharing and giving that away in exchange for an email address. But the way that I was distributing that was through relationship building, so I go to someone, someone and say, hey, like I have this free training. I'd love to do a Q&A for your audience on answering all of their questions on building a website. So that was the early days. And then that kind of translated to the same thing of getting in front of people who have web designers as an audience. So that would be companies like Skill Crush that teach coding to women. I had the opportunity to speak at one of their conferences, being on podcasts, speaking at summits, just connecting with people who serve my audience in a different way. And that has been hands down like the best, most lucrative marketing that I've done, because it's like they're automatically like warm leads. When you get an introduction to someone through someone else, there's already like an implicit trust there that like, oh, this person's awesome. Like, and there's always some reciprocation involved too. Like if I can help them, I'll help them any way I can. But like, this person's great. I think they have something that can help you. And so that's what I've done. And I've dabbled in paid ads. Like I'm testing out some YouTube ads right now. I'm testing out running some Facebook ads to my podcast, but I've never replaced my like organic relationship, I guess old school marketing strategies. Because how do people grow businesses before the internet? Like relationships, right?
Yep.
So
in person,
yeah,
just spreading the word of mouth, networking.
Yep.
I started my business in 2014 and I actually did a lot of networking. Not sure, like in-person networking. I'm not sure. Did he get me any? I think he got me a few here and there, but as I grew and like charged more, they weren't the right fits. But
yeah,
it was good. Like what would end up happening is like I would meet someone there, and even if I got no leads from there, they would pass along my information to someone else and be like, "Oh, I met someone. She sounds like she might be a good fit for what you're looking for. Here's her information." So that was like the most beneficial. Let's talk about a little bit your timeline in terms of hitting 100,000, 500,000, and then finally hitting your million. How long did it take for you to reach six figures at 100,000?
Yeah. So it took me, I didn't do it in my first year or my second year. It was my third year in business that I hit the 6-figure mark. And that was the year that I quit my day job. And so, and then I stayed there. I stayed at 6 figures, like 150, that. So when did I quit? 2017. I think 2018, I was around 150, 2019, kind of closing in around 200. And it wasn't until 2020. So 2020, I think we did 350 that year. And then 2021, we hit the $500,000 mark in 1 year.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
So
how many years did it take you to get cumulatively to $1 million?
Cumulatively to $1 million would have been 2020. So that would have been about 5.5 to 6 years since from starting in 2014.
Was the pandemic good for you? Because more people were starting to realize they wanted to be home and they liked that feeling of being home, or maybe people were losing their jobs?
Yeah. So it was super interesting because I relaunched my program as the high ticket, like higher price program in December of 2019. And then the pandemic hit in March. So I had like that first wave of like pre-pandemic people buying that kind of like validated that was, that I was like on the right track with that. And then when the pandemic hit in March, I kind of went into overdrive in terms of like promoting and enrolling people in the program. And I do think the pandemic was helpful because I think there were a lot of people who like everything was shifting to like, if I wasn't doing business online, I have to figure out how to do business online. And I think a lot of people saw the opportunity for themselves to finally just kind of go all in on starting their business. Mm-hmm. So I had my best years during that time. It's hard to say if it was the pandemic or if it was like the change. I think it was a culmination of a lot of things. I had finally started to value what I offered, and my price reflected that. And I went all in on the one offer, and I was exclusively putting all of my efforts behind marketing that and growing that. And so I think, and that happened to coincide with the pandemic where everybody's home and being online is all they can do, So I think I had a lot of things working to make 2020 and 2021 like my best years. And I don't think the pandemic hurt that.
Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned quite a few times, that shift you had in your mindset of valuing yourself. Yes. Talk to me a little bit about that and how you reach this mindset shift. And do you think it helped you reach the 7 figures?
It is 1,000% responsible for me reaching 7 figures, because the way I was trying to reach 7 figures before was through not taking money directly from my customers, getting money through affiliate commissions from other companies. So I have so many like money mindset shifts that I had to go through along the way. One of the biggest ones was that like, my ideas are valuable. My experience is valuable. I'm selling my intellectual property and I'm not selling my time. That was a huge one, because even when I was selling online courses, I felt guilty that like I wasn't spending enough time with people, or I wasn't giving them enough of me. And so and that's why I kept my prices low, right? I'm like, oh, well, if I raise my prices, then I'm obligated to give more of my time to these people. And I don't have the emotional like bandwidth or the physical time to be able to do that. And I did not realize that even though I had broke away from selling my time, even as a web designer, I wasn't selling hourly anymore. I was selling value-based outcomes with my pricing. I didn't realize that I still felt like if I charged $5,000 or $10,000 for this program, that didn't mean that I now had to give you more of my time. That like all of the frameworks and strategies and systems are the valuable thing. We're there to support that, and that the right people for our program like don't need more of my time. They need the support that they need when they need it, but it's not necessarily like one-on-one with me. So making that like complete break of like, it's not not my time that's valuable here. It's my ideas, and how they're delivered and how we support that was huge, because then I could enroll people at scale into my high ticket program. And then so I think that was just like, the more I charge, the more of me I'll have to give. And that's unsustainable. Like I was able to completely like eradicate that idea. And then just shifting from like, I had an expense mindset. Like I felt like or a scarcity mindset where like, if I spend this money, it's gone forever. Or if I charge my clients this much, it's coming out of their bank account forever, and that could harm them in some way. And so I have to keep my prices low in order to protect them, because what if they pay me money and then it doesn't work out for them? Or, I had a lot of that stuff going on about like being responsible for other people in ways that they never asked me to be, and I'm not. And it's like disempowering and disrespectful to think that that I have that I somehow know better than them about what decisions that they need to make with their business and their finances. And so really just saying like, if I'm all in on this, I know that what we do here works. I'm going to make the offer and let you decide because you're an adult. And I'm going to stay out of your wallet and stay out of your bank account and stay out of your business. And I'm going to answer all of your questions. And I'm going to ultimately let you make the decision if you want to make this investment, and really start shifting to seeing everything that not only I spent my money on, but what our clients spent their money on as investments that would create more for them in the future, rather than like money that's gone forever, never to return. And that's a scary thing that, could harm someone. So that's how, it's just how I grew up was, with a single mom who was always struggling to make ends meet, and there was never enough money. And that like thread carried through into my business, and I didn't even realize it. So I had to let that go and start thinking like every penny I spend is an investment. And if I can't figure out how it's an investment, then maybe I don't need to spend that money.
It's great advice. And it feels like you almost had to have this separation from value and time.
Yes.
Like it sounds like it was a clear delineation. And when you figured that out, you were able to grow exponentially.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about your team right now. What does it look like?
Yeah. So I have 2 employees. Now I have an operations and marketing coordinator, and I have a client success coordinator. So they started with me about 9 months ago. So I had made the shift in March from independent contractors to actual W-2 employees, which has been life-changing and amazing.
How so?
Because when like if you're approaching your independent contractor relationships legally, I should say, this is not legal advice, but an independent contractor is someone who you hire who already has a skill that they're providing a skill to you on their timeline. They may have other clients. And there are like, you don't get to like dictate like, here are our working hours. Here's when we're doing things. Here's what we're working on. Like with employees, I have 2 people who their full-time job is to help me run our company and help our clients get results and help us do our marketing and all of those things. And so when I had independent contractors, they were amazing. They were massively talented. They were so great at what they did, but we couldn't be as nimble as what we can be now. And not that my independent contractors weren't like committed to the success of my business. They absolutely were, but like our employees are like all in on it too. So it's just been like, I'm not like a client to someone else. I have these team members who are like part of the mission as well. And it's just different. It's hard to explain.
No, I know what you mean, because I have an independent contractor, and sometimes, well, I have a few, but there is one specific person I'm thinking about that. Like, I wish you would just get back to me a little faster so then I could do this stuff and everything would go a little bit faster. But I can't.
Right. Yeah. There's a difference between how you can like expectations of an employee versus independent contractors in terms of like, who gets to decide what the work looks like and all of that stuff. And like we've been able to create like a really flexible work environment as well, because we're like all on the same team and all on the same page. So I wanted to create the opposite of what I had at my day job when I hired employees. So I went into it like really intentionally of like, what do I want this work environment to look like? How can we create like the most flexible work environment possible while also still like meeting our goals and being able to move quickly and so far I think we've really gelled, and it's amazing. So I was looking at all of our numbers with my accountant yesterday, like kind of looking at year end and our tax projections and making sure like we paid enough in estimated taxes and all of those things. And just kind of looking at like the payroll number, on our balance sheet and thinking like, I'm so proud of that number because like it's an investment in the growth of our company, but it's also like I'm able to pay full-time salaries to people who have their dream job. Like it's amazing. So it's just it's a far cry from the version of me in 2018 who quit my day job, who was like afraid to spend money on anything because it'd be disappear and be gone forever, to like the best money I spend every month is on payroll.
Have you ever had months in the red?
I have had this is an interesting question. So I have had months where I have spent more money than we've brought in, but our cash flow has never been negative. Like our cash in the bank has never been, we've never been in debt. So we've had months where we've, spent $40,000 and brought in $30,000 because we're making like investments in future projects and stuff. But we've run a debt-free business from day one, which is crazy to think about, but it's
that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. It's like a double-edged sword though sometimes, because you're like, yeah, I'm really proud of this and I don't want to go into debt for certain things, but then you also see like I'm exploring this because I'm like, am I cutting myself off from like making investments that could really help me grow? I'm very like risk averse. So I'm like, oh, how am I thinking about debt in a way that's like helping me or harming me? I don't know. I'm exploring what that looks like. Because I do put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that like we are fully funded for, 3 to 6 months in the business. Especially now that I have employees whose salaries that I'm responsible for. So that's a whole nother, I shouldn't say I'm responsible for them. This is one thing I'm correcting myself on. We're all responsible for that. So, yeah, it's kind of like that next level that I'm at in terms of like how I think about money in my business. And what do I make going into debt mean? Do I make that mean that I've failed, or do I make that mean that, I'm making strategic investments? Like, I don't know. I'm still exploring that.
What do you think was the most important action you took to grow your business to 1 million?
Raising my prices.
Yeah.
Absolutely raising my prices. I mean, we went from $2,000 for our Web Designer Academy program to $5,000. We're at $7,500 this year. We'll go to $10,000 in 2023. And raising my prices and being sold on the idea that I'm still undercharging even at $10,000 for the value that it brings. Yeah.
How do you plan to grow your business? I mean, you've been talking about a little bit of like with investments. Do you think you're like happy where you are right now, but it sounds like you want to grow it? And where is it going? Do you ever think about selling it?
Yes, I've thought about all of those things. In terms of what we want to do in 2023, like we definitely want to grow in terms of, I want to have the biggest impact I can have on the most women web designers I can possibly have. Like if we could get every single one of them to stop undercharging and over delivering and really like understand their value, like my life's mission
value versus
would be complete.
Time.
Yes. Value versus time, like value to their client, like what their client's able to create when they have this tool, so there's so many pieces of that. So I have a goal to, if I want to make $1 million in revenue in a year, like for me at this point, making $1 million to make $1 million is like, for what? I feel like I pay myself a great salary. I always want to pay my team more because they're awesome. So we'd love to be able to do that. To make profit for the sake of making profit, that has not motivated me once I like got to the point where I quit my day job. I made six figures. I made 500,000 in a year. I like bought my dream car, you know, all of those things were like fleeting goals, but they didn't last as like a money for money's sake. And so when I say, yeah, I want to grow to 1 million, that's the result of how many people we were able to help. And that feels like worth the effort and worth what it's going to take, and worth taking some risks that maybe I wouldn't want to take just for the sake of making money. So I would love to, you know, repeat our 2022 and 2020, or 2021 and 2022 and 2023. If we just did 500,000 next year, that'd be awesome. But that means we helped less people. And so I would love to make 1 million, because I know that we helped that many people. So how we grow to that, we're testing so many different things. Like we're going back to like old school one-on-one sales, while we're also testing out YouTube ads. We actually acquired a summit for web designers that we have spoken at for the past 5 years and sponsored last year. The host of that summit decided to put it up for sale, so we acquired that. We're building relationships. We launched our podcast this year. I had a podcast previously that was just for like general business owners, for like that DIYer side of my business, but we decided to launch a web designer specific podcast. So we are just trying lots of different things to get in front of our ideal clients, to spread the word that they get to stop undercharging and over delivering.
How do you manage your time during the day with so many different initiatives and goals?
Time blocking. I mean, truly, that was one of the things that like that first business coach that I mentioned, when I was still working a full-time job and I was trying to do one-on-one client work and market, you know, 2 different products and all of these things. And I felt so overwhelmed. And she's like, and I had quit my day job. And I was like very resistant to the idea that like I was going to have a schedule because I was like, I finally have freedom. I don't have to go to a job. I get to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it, which meant I was doing everything all the time instead of.
That always happens.
Yes. And
working nonstop.
Yeah. So I really had to like put some boundaries in place. And so like I have a saying, like Mondays and mornings are mine. I do not take meetings on Mondays. I don't take meetings like before 11 a.m. And I typically try to keep Fridays clear too. So that's time when I'm working like on projects, or like Mondays just kind of my day to do whatever. And then I keep all my meetings to the afternoon, all of our calls, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I really had to put those boundaries in place in order to stay focused. And then also with our team, we all have an expectation of like asynchronous communication as well. So we use Slack to communicate, but I always say to them like, hey, if I'm working like on a Saturday morning because I got inspired to write this piece of content and I had a bunch of ideas and I'm pinging you in Slack, like I do not expect you to respond. Like you guys know when you have your work days and things like that. So one of the things that I've really come to realize is that like getting to create my own schedule actually does create more freedom than not having one. And that took a few years of
sucked in.
Yeah.
You just get sucked in. You keep going and going and going and going. And it's just, you don't take a break. You don't stop. I know.
I had to burn out to be able to really understand that like, I get to design this life, but I have to intentionally design it, because if I don't intentionally make decisions to create that perfect day that we all talk about when we visualize our businesses, it's not going to just happen. You have to intentionally create it, and you have to intentionally create it at the revenue that you're at now, not at your someday revenue. Like if I was going to say, oh, when I make $1 million in a year, then I will take Mondays off and Fridays off and not take meetings in the mornings, it's never going to happen. I have to do that now and like build my business around those constraints. And that's what I've been really, really great at doing since I quit my job in 2018 and burnt out, and then had to put some boundaries in place.
What advice do you have for other women as they grow their business or want to hit that $1 million tipping point? Why do you think some women don't get there?
I would say that you could probably charge way more than you're charging now for whatever it is that you're doing. I think that is one like really big lever people can pull that they don't think they can pull because they're worried about what people will think. They're worried about being told that they're too expensive. They're worried about being rejected or being told it's not worth it. And, it's okay that your offer isn't for everybody, but figuring out who it's for at the price that you need to sell it to make it be sustainable. I think that is the biggest lever someone could pull to reach their tipping point. And then making your marketing as easy as possible, I think too, because I think content marketing is great. As you know, I have a ton of content that I've created over the years, but what really moves the needle is building relationships with people who serve the clients that I want to get in front of, delivering value to them and to that audience. And that is like a tried and true way to grow. And the content supports that and it nurtures the relationship, but it's not the like, just don't wait to be discovered. Like, go out there and create those opportunities.
What hurdles have you faced specifically growing and running your business as a woman?
I think definitely in the early days, I faced a lot of, you shouldn't be doing this if you even have to ask those questions. When I was going in, like building websites and running into issues and going into forums and asking a question and like having someone comment, like, if you have to ask that question, you're not qualified to do this. And I'm like, huh. And it's like, well, I'm going to go take my ball and go build my own playground then, which is kind of how I react to that. So definitely feeling like I get indignant about that stuff more than I get like knocked down by it. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go create the space where this is like a safe place for people to be. But I also think just like, all of the things that we're afraid of when we're putting ourselves out there in a big way, like those things have happened. You're afraid to take a stand on something because you're afraid someone's going to like leave a nasty comment on your social media or like respond to an email with something negative about you. And those things have happened and they sting and they hurt. Like when you get feedback that like is just not what like is kind of like your worst fear, right? You have to decide, what am I making this mean? Like, is this about me? Is this about them? Am I going to let this stop me? Is there something I could have done differently or better? What do I want to take from this to help me grow, instead of just making it mean like all of my worst fears, that I'm an imposter and not good enough and shouldn't be charging this much and how dare I, and making all of those things true. Like, how can you take that feedback and help you like grow from that and make you stronger? So, yeah, I think those two things where I'm like being told, how dare I, and I'm like, well, watch me. But then on the other hand, getting feedback that I'm like, oh, but you are my person and you're not happy with something that I've done. And that it hurts, and you can retreat or you can like take a look at it and keep moving forward. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
it did. No, it did.
Yeah.
Where can we find you? Share your social media, your website, your academy, everything.
Yeah. So the best place to find me is webdesigneracademy.com. That's like where our podcast is. That's where our blog is. You can find us at Profitable Web Designer on Instagram. And if you are not a web designer and you want to just learn more about like the business tech side of things, just shannonmattern.com.
Awesome. Thank you. What is one philosophy, mantra, or quote that you try to run your business by?
Progress, not perfection.
Ooh, haven't heard that one. I've heard similar, but I like that. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining the conversation. And again, for everyone who's listening, be sure to subscribe to our email community because you'll get the exclusive content and rapid fire questions. Thank you so much. We'll make sure to put everything in the show notes.
Thank you so much for having me.